Good afternoon, and thank you very much for tuning in today. Today, I want to take the opportunity to update you on the maiden mineral resource estimate for our Mandilla Gold project, and also provide you with a quick update on some of the technical studies that we've also been working on in the background. So, geographically, obviously nothing has changed relative to our project and the mine infrastructure that is nearby. There is one thing that I do want to talk to you guys about on this slide. That is, in August last year, we spent $740,000 of shareholder funds to eliminate all third-party royalties at the Mandilla Gold project. Now, to do a simple calculation on that, if we grab these 500,000 ounces that have been announced today in this maiden Mandilla mineral resource estimate, convert 94% of that into gold production, i.e. a recovery of 94% metallurgically, and sell that at $2,500 Australian gold price, we would have had to pay the previous royalty owners $66 million in royalties. So I make this point just to be really clear that $740,000 worth of shareholder funds that we spent was effectively a very good use of funds. So in our last presentation to the market, which was November 2020, we made a number of statements. The first statement was we would be RC drilling through to April 2021, and effectively we paused drilling middle of April after drilling 29,000 meters. So we achieved that. The second statement is that we would start diamond drilling early in 2021. We effectively started early February, paused the diamond drilling in April after drilling 2,700 meters. I also made two statements in relation to mineral resource estimates. The first was our plan to declare a maiden mineral resource for Mandilla East towards the end of last year. Unfortunately, we did miss that target. And the second was to have a maiden mineral resource estimate for Mandilla South by the middle of this year, and we've certainly achieved that one. So 3 out of 4 so far. Now, our issues with relation to sample turnarounds have been well documented, and we're certainly not on our own there. It's been an issue for the entire industry. And also we had some issues late last year with the appropriate drill rig and its availability to drill at Mandilla East. So that's why we missed our target on the Mandilla East resource. So the key message is that from a management perspective here at Anglo Australian Resources, if we make a statement of what we're going to do, then you can please be assured that that's what we're working on, and we're doing everything that we can to deliver that. Okay, so let's move on to the mineral resource estimate. It's 15.6 million tonnes, at 1 gram per tonne for 500,000 ounces. We've reported this within a constrained pit shell at an Australian dollar gold price of $2,500 an ounce. Our cutoff grade was 0.39 grams per tonne, and we selected this because that's the break-even cutoff when we stress our open pit to $2,000 Aussie. We've already got 48% of the ounces in the indicated category, and the strip ratio works out at less than 7:1. The mining and processing costs are based from relevant benchmarks, and we've used a conservative processing recovery of 94%, even though the test work supports a met recovery of over 97%. When we've stressed this optimization down to a $2,000 gold price, 80% of this resource still converts into what you would call a quasi-reserve pit shell. So notwithstanding that 52% of the resource is obviously in the inferred category, I make this point again to highlight that it's a robust mineral resource estimate. Now, at Mandilla East, we're over 1.5 kilometres long, and the pit extends to a depth of 260 metres. At Mandilla South, we have over 700 metres worth of footprint there. The resource was estimated using a localised uniform conditioning. So Cube Consulting tested ordinary kriging. They also tested multiple indicator kriging, and ultimately LUC was found to best represent the mineralisation. I'm not going to go and pretend to understand the work that goes into computing a mineral resource estimate. It's certainly not an area of my expertise, but I do know that a couple of years ago, there was a mining company that got into some trouble with their grades, and unfortunately they ended up in administration as a result. The administrators did bring in Cube Consulting. Their resource was re-estimated using LUC as a model, and they end up finding a 30% reduction in grade. The key message here is that Anglo Australian Resources has used a robust, conservative, and most importantly, an appropriate method for estimating the mineral resources at Mandilla. Another important point to note is from a JORC code perspective, when estimating a resource, you must have a reasonable basis for determining the economic viability of the project. So when you grab 15 million tonnes at 1 gram, apply 94% recovery, a strip ratio that is effectively less than 7, a specific gravity of 2.65, and you use those mining and processing costs that we've listed, the Mandilla Gold Project could potentially generate $600 million of positive cash flow. So again, the key message is this certainly ticks the potentially economic box. Now I'll just move on to a couple of images from the Inventum 3D model, which is now available on our website. So this first image, you can basically see the resource. You can also see the transparent layer down the bottom, which is effectively the unclassified resources. The next image you can see now we've removed the unclassified resources, and you can see the actual mineral resource estimate as it's constrained inside a $2,500 gold price pit shell. And the final image, I basically just brought on those unclassified resources. You can see them underneath the pit shell. You can see that there's quite a large amount of resources at the base of Mandilla East that sits just outside this constrained pit shell. Key message here is our Mandilla story is just beginning. So coming back to the plan, I'll show you there's 4 sections I'd like to talk you through. I'm going to start with section 4. Now this is effectively new results that were put out last week. We have already backfilled with infill drilling from this section back towards the Mandilla East mineralised footprint, and you can see that with the large red ellipse that's on the plan there. So just taking you through to that first section. Sorry, I missed a section. It's all right. The order of my slides, I've managed to mix them up, so my apologies. So I'll just go on to first section here. So this is section 1, which is now in the Mandilla East main zone. It shows a large zone of mineralisation, certainly relative to the pit shell, and you can also see that we've got 5 metres at 4.2 grams per tonne, which is beneath the pit shell, which is effectively unclassified. Moving on to section 2, we're still in the Mandilla East main zone. You can see there's some significant high-grade zones of mineralisation, even though we've applied a 20-gram top cut to the mineral resource estimate. And then section 3, now we're just to the south of the Mandilla East main zone. Here we've got MDRCD 191 on the section. It's our deepest hole at the project. We've previously reported 76.5 metres at 1.2 grams per tonne from 296 metres here on this section, but it also includes 1 metre at 42 grams per tonne and 0.4 of a metre at 13 grams per tonne, which is at 411 metres downhole. So Mandilla East certainly remains open at depth. Section 4 here, key thing I just wanted to talk about at section 4 is that these are new results, only released last week. They sit outside the mineral resource estimate because these results came in after we'd started the work on the resource estimate, and it includes 9 metres at 4.2, there's 38 metres at 1, plus another 17 metres at 1.1 on the same hole, and a large zone of mineralisation, 86 metres at 0.6, all on the one section. So you can see here on this section that the pit is starting to daylight as it comes towards surface as we're moving south here. We will be able to extend the pit to the south, and based on the infill drilling that we've done to date back towards the mineral resource estimate, This shows the potential to add significant ounces along strike to the south here at Mandilla. Okay, so I've sort of spoken about the mineral resource assessment. I just want to now just quickly touch on the study phases and give you a quick recap. So with the preliminary MET testing that we released earlier this year, we couldn't have had a better result from this MET testing perspective. Average recovery of over 97%, very fast leaching kinetics, and low reagent consumptions. There's a bit of work we want to do here in terms of understanding the optimization of that grind size. So how sensitive is the grind size to recovery? Because that will lead to lower capital costs and more cost-efficient grinding if we can coarsen this grind up and maintain these really high recoveries. So that's what we're doing from a metallurgy perspective. And just to recap on the geotechnical, all of our other studies. So from a geotechnical perspective, several geotechnical holes were drilled as part of the most recent diamond drilling campaign. These holes have been logged by a geotechnical engineer. The selected sections have been cut and now been submitted for rock properties testings, and we're awaiting those results. The outcome of this will be a PFS level document for the geotechnical work. In regards to hydrology, we had our RC rig on site. We utilised it for a 4-day period, lifting a number of our previous RC holes. The work is still pending. However, early indications is there's very little water come out of that pit. So certainly no red flags from a hydrology perspective. On fauna, all of the fauna work required has been done and is now completed. Interestingly, we actually had to survey for a number of things, like a particular sugar ant and a particular type of moth. Those things have been surveyed for and the areas have been cleared. So from a fauna perspective, we are now good to go. And finally, on flora, we've still got one more level of study to do with regards to flora. There are some priority 1 species that we need to now go and survey in the spring. However, given their location, they're certainly not critical to the footprint that we have at Mandilla and our plans for mine infrastructure. So things are progressing really well from that perspective. So you can certainly see from a study phase, there's a number of activities that are happening in the background, which will allow us to move quickly to a PFS level document at the most appropriate time. So just to wrap up, we have an exceptionally strong cash position. We have a great start with 500,000 ounces, and certainly given the infill drilling that we have still to come in, the results that we released last week, and the targets that we're starting to work up for future drilling, we're certainly confident of our ability to continue to grow the Mandilla Gold Project as we go forward. So thank you very much. We'll just see if there's been any questions that have been asked, and we'll go through those and answer them as appropriate.
Thanks very much, Mark. Just a reminder to everyone listening in, if you would like to ask a question, just use the Q&A tab on your viewing screen, and they'll come straight through to me and I can put them directly to Mark. Mark, I might kick off with a couple. Just congratulations on the resource estimate, firstly.
Thank you.
One of the big headaches for everyone in the industry at the moment is assay turnaround, and I think you've made the point in today's release that there's a significant amount of volume of drilling information still in the lab awaiting assay, which hasn't been included in this resource. What is your strategy in terms of updating the resource? How quickly would you release a further update? Would you do it following this next batch of drilling, or can you just give us a sense of how the resource might increase from here, or what your strategy would be?
Yeah, okay. Then so I guess a little bit on the sampling or assaying turnaround time. So the results that we released last week, those samples were actually submitted to the lab on the 10th of February. So you can see there was an over 90-day turnaround to get those results back so that we could actually announce them to the market. Given that we were drilling and then putting samples in up until the 20th of April, we'll expect that those assays will continue to trickle through all the way to mid to end July. Our intention is, at the moment, we're actually doing a structural review. So we've got a team of geologists on site at the moment looking at the structural complexity that exists at Mandilla. So the finalisation of that will be 2 weeks. And as we continue to get the drill results coming through, we'll use those to start to really finalise our plans for our next drilling program. Our intention is to be drilling June, July, more likely have the diamond rig on site in July and then continue to drill. And in terms of when we next do a mineral resource estimate, it's when we can see that we've meaningfully changed the way we're thinking about the project and for it to make sense. So potentially 6 monthly to 9 monthly in terms of frequency.
Okay, great. And then can you talk through a little more about that drilling strategy in terms of when you restart June, July this year, where the opportunities are, where the low-hanging fruit is in terms of extensions or additions or new discoveries for that matter?
Yeah, so as part of our previous drilling, we've tested some targets well north of Mandilla East, and there was a supergene target well south of Mandilla South. So those have been drill tested. We're waiting those results, and once we get those, then we can determine whether it actually makes sense for us to follow up. In regards to in the immediate area of Mandilla East, it certainly still remains open at depth, and the work we're keen to do there is to understand what type of grades we need to justify an economically viable underground resource there at Mandilla. And on the basis that that work stacks up, then we'll certainly look to test Mandilla East at depth. And also there's work on Mandilla East as we're looking to extend it to the south and to the southeast. So there's a number of opportunities there. Given that with the length of the footprint of Mandilla East and Mandilla South, there's only a 300-metre gap now between Mandilla East and Mandilla South before we actually join that up. And then it presents a rather long strike length open pit opportunity of close to 2.5 kilometres there.
Fantastic. Now we are starting to get some questions coming in thick and fast online. Okay. So thanks everyone who's listening in. I think we've dealt with the first one, which was when do you expect to release the next resource estimate. The second one here from David Brennan, he asks, how many metres were used to compile this resource? It would be useful to compare that to the 12,000 metres of drill results still outstanding.
I don't have that answer on top of my head. Thanks, David. So we've done 29,000 metres of RC as part of that most recent program. There's still 9,000 metres of that outstanding plus the 2,000 metres of diamond. So I would be putting a number out there, which is probably incorrect, but I'd suggest it's probably about 30,000 metres in total.
Okay, great. Another question here from Keith Falconer. He asks, how do you feel about the diamond drill cores, having seen them come out of the ground? I think he's probably alluding to the drilling that you've completed recently, the diamond drilling that you've completed recently. So not sure how much you can say about that, but you have made a few comments on some of the visuals that you've seen, I think, in the last release.
Yeah, so that diamond drilling, to put into context with the geology team that we have on site, when the RC rig is going, our team is effectively fully utilised managing the RC rig. So when we're diamond drilling and RC drilling, effectively what it means is we're taking the core back to our yard, and as soon as we finished RC drilling, then we started logging of the diamond core. So if we're drilling for 6 weeks worth of diamond, there's actually six weeks worth of logging that we need to do to catch up, get it cut and put into the lab. So I guess to answer Keith's question, just today I got another couple of photos of visible gold. We put photos of visible gold in our exploration announcements as they come. It's always good to see the VG in the core, but more importantly is getting an assay that supports that VG, and we've already documented how VG and an economic assay don't necessarily always align. But certainly what we're seeing in the core from the photos, it's certainly encouraging.
Thanks, Mark. So you've given us an idea of the process you have to go through to get those diamond results. A specific question from Andrew Willis, how long until you report assays for the diamond holes? Can you give us an estimate?
So MDRCD 377, I think. I was actually on site probably 6 weeks ago, cut that and submitted it to the lab. Given the 3-week turnaround, potentially there's another 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Sorry, the 3-month turnaround, potentially there's another 4 to 5 weeks before we see that. The other holes, once we finish logging, then we'll bring a diamond sorter site, we'll cut the whole lot and submit it. So that will be probably towards the end of sometime in June, we'd like to think we'd get all the core cut and submitted to the lab. And then it's based on how long it takes for that turnaround to happen, anywhere from 4 weeks to 12 weeks.
So July, August.
Yeah, we'll be expecting that diamond results coming in potentially in August.
Okay.
We'd expect.
Okay, great. Another question from David Brennan. Does the 500,000 ounce resource include the historical pit resource of 38,000 ounces at 3.3 grams?
Yeah, so that historical resource was a Mandilla East resource, which was a fresh rock resource. So yes, it is one and the same estimate. It's now just an update of that.
Okay. Also from David, can you give us a breakdown of the split of the resource between Mandilla East and Mandilla South?
No, look, not at this stage, because we've actually modelled the whole thing as one deposit and run the pit shells and the optimizations. When it actually gives us the results, it gives them as a combined Mandilla Gold Project result, and we haven't bothered to split that out just yet.
Okay. Another question which I was going to put to you is we talk about the concept of a mining hub and incorporating the Fayetteville project. Can you tell us a little bit more about Fayetteville? Obviously, we haven't read a lot about it in recent times. What are the opportunities to expand that resource, and what work plans, if any, do you have?
Okay, look, so we're doing some work in the background for some targeting there at Fayetteville. So we're probably not at a point where we can really shed too much light on that just yet. And we're also working with a native title claimant group to get our M's granted. So effectively the tenure was sitting there as a P. We've applied for it to be granted as an M. We're going through that process. Once they're granted as an M, then it allows us to hit the ground at Fayetteville. And as a precursor to that, we've done quite an amount of targeting work, and those results realistically are expected within the coming weeks for us to start to interpret what that means and where we want to go from a drilling perspective at Fayetteville. To be honest, we'd like to think we could be drilling there later this year. However, it really depends on how much of our focus, because at the moment our focus is 100% from a drilling perspective aimed at Mandilla.
Okay. You talk about critical mass in today's release. I mean, what would you see as a critical mass that would enable you to move forward with a mining hub scenario?
Look, I think you want to get to that 100,000 ounces per annum over 7 or 8 year period. So you need to get those resources into a reserve type category. I sort of alluded to with this resource estimate that when we stress this down to $2,000 an ounce gold price, it was converting at about 80%. So we are over half the way there to getting to that critical mass at Mandilla. Okay.
Got a great question here from Alex Rivera from Canaccord. Alex says, utilising the LUC estimation method is very conservative, as are some of the assumptions around top cuts. This screens as a very low risk JORC resource, potentially underestimating the gold content. Was that driven by the company or the resource consultants? A slight change to this estimation method and assumptions could potentially increase this significantly, which is how some of your peers could potentially have reported it. Can you give us some comments on that observation?
I think the key things for Anglo going forward are getting this project to support a development. And for it to support a development, you need a solid, robust mineral resource estimate. And there's been enough examples of underperforming resources recently. And they do have an impact on how you go and then finance your project going forward. So it was a combination of both Cube and AAR, but we are fundamentally focused on getting the project to a scale where we can build it. And smoke and mirrors can only get you so far, and it's not in our interest to participate in that.
Fair enough. So you've outlined a very robust resource, Mark, here in a prime mining area, just 70 k's south of Kalgoorlie. Fantastic district, lots of hungry mills around. Can you give us just a scenario for the next sort of 12 months? I mean, how do you see things panning out for the company. You're going to move into a pre-feasibility study, development studies, but no doubt there's also the possibility of having a knock on the door from someone operating in the district.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of what we will do, we'll certainly stick to our knitting. We will grow the Mandilla gold project. We'll grow those ounces to sustain that critical mass, and then we'll move towards the study phases, pre-feasibility and definitive feasibility. They're the things that are in our control. They're the things we'll focus on. And if someone knocks on the door, well, we'll have a chat. We'll have a chat to them then and see what their plans are and how they align with ours.
Fantastic. I think that just about wraps it up. We don't have any more questions. So, Mark, if you'd like to just sort of close out with a couple of concluding comments, that'd be fantastic. Thanks everyone for your questions.
No worries, thank you. Look, in terms of just closing out, I think the quote that we've got in the mineral resource announcement that went out today is a good way to wrap up how we're feeling and what we're going to do going forward. So I think the journey is certainly just beginning. We are certainly well capitalised, and we have the motivation and the financial means to continue to drive the project forward. So thank you very much for tuning in.